When I first read about the Battle of Alesia, my mind was blown. The incredible strategy employed by Julius Caesar was ambitious, verging on ludicrous. In 52 BC, Caesar had spent 6 years in Gaul, fighting and conquering many tribes with his Roman legions. This had been a very successful campaign, extending Rome's influence and bringing wealth and power to Caesar. Despite the victories, however, there was still unrest in Gaul. Vercingetorix, great name, chieftain of the Arverni tribe, called for rebellion and quickly gathered support from tribes across Gaul. He mustered a large army and forced Caesar to respond. Caesar marched with 8 legions, but Vercingetorix refused to open battle, preferring to use guerrilla tactics to split the Roman force, while continuing to turn more tribes against the Romans. The confidence of the rebels grew, and they saw victory in several skirmishes. Vercingetorix was declared commander of the united Gallic armies and sought to remove the Romans from Gaul completely. He finally attacked Caesar and his legions, but he was repelled, and he withdrew to Alesia. Alesia was a fortified settlement atop a hill, with a river on either side. Inside were Vercingetorix's 80,000 infantry and 12,000 cavalry. Against such a strong defensive position, and outnumbered, Caesar had around 50,000 troops. Caesar decided to force surrender by starvation with a siege. The troops garrisoned inside, along with the local population, meant this would not have taken long. In order to effectively blockade Alesia, Caesar ordered the construction of a huge encircling wall 16 kilometers or 10 miles in length. In most historical sieges, the attackers would surround the settlement, but Caesar wanted to create a strong defence of his own for when the Gauls came out to attack. The Roman fortifications were incredibly thorough. Along with the 12-foot high walls, they constructed towers, deep and wide trenches, moats, hidden pits full of spikes, palisades, battlements, stakes and turrets. This bewildering array of obstacles slowed down any Gallic advance and prevented them from attacking effectively. The Gauls attempted to disrupt the construction work, but were constantly repelled by the Roman infantry with heavy losses. However, before the fortifications could be completed, Vercingetorix's cavalry managed to escape the blockade during the night in order to summon reinforcements from all of Gaul. Caesar was faced with a tough choice. Knowing that a large reinforcing army would be on its way, he could either attack Alesia now or withdraw. But Caesar was a great strategist, and instead he created a solution where there was none. He ordered his legions to create an outer fortification. This wall was even larger than the first, forming a circle 20 kilometers or 13 miles long. The Romans had to travel some distance to get enough timber and materials, and whilst it's not clear how long the construction took, it would have had to have been a few short weeks before the reinforcements arrived. This mind-blowing feat of engineering demonstrates how ambitious and capable the Roman army was. Back in Alesia, food was running out. Vercingetorix sent out the old, the sick, the wives and the children, hoping that Caesar would hold them as captives and feed them, saving more precious grain for his fighting men. But Caesar was ruthless, and refused them entry into the fort. Eventually the massive Gallic relief force arrived, numbering some 240,000 men, and soon began to attack the outer wall. Vercingetorix joined them in attacking the inner wall. Despite having their forces split, the Romans held fast and repeatedly pushed back the attackers. Again and again, day and night, the Gauls were repelled by the seasoned Roman troops and their powerful defensive fortifications. After several days, the Gauls identified a weak spot in the outer wall, where the steep ground could not be included. 60,000 tribal warriors attacked, against 2 legions and 6 cohorts of cavalry, led by Caesar's lieutenant, Labienus. At the same time, Vercingetorix rallied his besieged troops and attacked any weaknesses in the outer wall. These attacks further divided the Romans, who were struggling to hold the fort. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the Roman army was professional and well trained. Caesar sent several waves to defend the inner wall, eventually joining in himself with fresh reserve troops and succeeding in driving back the attackers. Labienus, meanwhile, was on the verge of collapse. Caesar rushed to his aid, and his arrival galvanized the Roman troops and encouraged them to fight on. Roman cavalry had moved to flank the attackers, and the sight of them caused the Gauls to abandon the fight and flee. The next day, Vercingetorix surrendered. Alesia marked the end of the Gallic Wars, and the end of any organised resistance against the Romans for 500 years. For Caesar, Alesia was an enormous military and political victory. 2 years later, he would cross the Rubicon and incite and win a civil war, leading to his dictatorship of the Roman Empire. Vercingetorix was held prisoner for 5 years, until being paraded through the streets of Rome in Caesar's triumph, and finally executed.